I want to welcome you to this brand new series on the book of Esther. Esther is the book in the Old Testament. It's one of two books that are named for a woman, but I want you to know that I am so very excited to share with you what God has for each of us in this story of Esther. If I were to start out and tell you a little bit about Esther, I would say that Esther begins in the winter. Here we are today, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but we're expecting anywhere from 4 to 10 inches of snow. Now in Kansas, what I've always believed about the weather is that I'll wait until I see it, and then I'll believe it. And then if I don't like it, I'll just wait a few minutes and the weather changes. But the book of Esther is in the wintertime. You know what I mean, don't you? It's the time of the year when you're ready for spring. You're ready for life to begin. You're tired of the gray, you're tired of the snow. You just want to move on, but you just feel the heaviness. Maybe in your life it might be something like this. You're experiencing a depression. Maybe you got the news from a doctor that you've got a health issue, or maybe there's a financial problem. Maybe you lost your spouse, or maybe a spouse walked out on you. Another way to look at it would be like this. The other day I was talking to a gentleman and he said to me, my wife asked me what I wanted for supper last night. The gentleman who was standing next to him said, my wife asked me, what's your name again? Now I think you understand a little bit about what we mean when we talk about we're in a state of winter. The worst part about this is where we're at right now is that according to the groundhog just a few weeks ago, we've got 6 more weeks of winter. So what do we do during this time of winter? How do we move forward during this time? Well, you know what? Esther is the book that's going to tell us about what to do when we're in the winter of our life. Esther is a story about how God moves in the lives of his people, even when they don't see him working. Did you know that in the book of Esther, God's name is not mentioned one single time? If you were to ask me, what's the theme of the book of Esther, I would probably say it's this. It's God's sovereignty, it's God's faithfulness, but it's God working behind the scenes. Do you ever ask yourself, wherever you are in your life right now, God, what do you have for me? Or maybe you're thinking that God has forgotten about you and you just kind of feel like you're, strolling through life all by yourself. One of the things that we're going to learn in the book of Esther is this. It's God working behind the scene. However, it's also God orchestrating each and every scene to accomplish the purpose that he has for each of us in our lives. I want you to know, my dear friend, that wherever you may be right now, God has a purpose and God has a plan for you. I want you to be reminded that, you know what, just around the corner, spring is coming. But until then, we just simply need to stay faithful where we are. There are some well-known characters in the book of Esther that we're going to be introduced to us. Right now, the leader of the Persian government who is in control is a man by the name of Xerxes. Xerxes had a wife by the name of Queen Vashti. And as our story opens up, King Xerxes is throwing a huge party. But there's a special reason why he's throwing this party. First of all, you need to know that this party lasts 180 days. Can you believe that? Have you ever been to a party for 180 days? But the king has a plan, and his plan is he's trying to sell his leadership on a war plan. After this 180-day party, now there becomes a day of 7 days of party, a 7-day feast. And during this time, King Xerxes invites his wife, Queen Vashti, to come and to visit him and join him in the party with all the other men. And you know what she does? She refuses. Something happens there that kind of puts everything in the book of Esther into motion. And here's what happens. King Xerxes is so upset that his advisors tell him, banish her from your kingdom. And that's exactly what he does. In fact, he sends out a decree to all of his land that all men must be respected. Well, you and I both know that's not the way to get in good with your wife, right? But that's what he did. And what happens then is the story of God begins to unfold. And how does it unfold? Very simply like this. There's a young girl. She's a beautiful girl. Her name is Esther, and she's experiencing the winter of her life. She's wondering why she is where she is, and how could God ever use someone like Esther in the lives of his people? Just in that time when she feels like God has left her, God shows up. And when he shows up, she is ready. And that's what I want to challenge you with today. Are you ready? Are you ready for that moment in your life when God is going to show up and everything that you've experienced in your life is going to come to a time where you're going to need to draw from it? Prepare yourself, because today might be that day. May God bless you as you spend time discussing the story and the questions.